What happens after we die? It's a question that has kept people up at night for, well, forever. We tend to imagine it's a journey, right? A destination, some place we go. But what if that's the wrong way to think about it entirely? Today, we're going to dig into a 4th century text that offers up a really radical idea, one that feels surprisingly modern.
So let's just chew on this for a second. This is the central question, the big idea. A 4th century philosopher, a bishop named Gregory of Nyssa, basically looked at everyone around him and said, hey, you're all asking the wrong question. He believed that instead of obsessing about the soul's destination, we should be looking at its condition. And to really get that, we can't start with death. We have to start with life.
See, for Gregory, the afterlife isn't some separate event that just happens to you. Nope. It's a direct continuation of the life you've already lived. So before we can even begin to talk about where a soul might go, we first have to understand what he thought the soul is and what its job is right here on Earth.
And this is where he comes up with this absolutely brilliant analogy. He says, think of your soul as a garden, a plot of land. It's not some static, finished thing. It's this dynamic space, and we're the gardeners. Every choice we make, every action we take, that's like planting a seed or pulling a weed. It's on us.
And this really lays out the 2 paths he saw. On the one hand, you can be a wise gardener. You intentionally align yourself with what's good, you work to cultivate virtues, you get your passions under control, or there's the other path. You can just let the whole plot become unruly. You give in to the opposite. Your passions run wild like weeds, taking over everything, and you basically become a slave to your own uncultivated nature. The choice, Gregory says, is completely ours.
Okay, so with this idea in our heads, this garden of a soul, either cultivated or uncultivated, now we can turn to that moment of death. The common belief back in Gregory's time was that pretty much everyone, good or bad, went to one specific place. And that place, yeah, it had a name, Hades. Now, it wasn't exactly the hell we might think of today. It was more like a physical location, a real underworld, a sort of container for all the souls of the dead. This was just the default assumption. It's just what people believed.
And believe me, this wasn't some fringe idea. It was powerful. In Gregory's own dialogue, the person he's talking with basically makes the case that, look, this idea of a place for the soul is everywhere. It's in worldly philosophy, it's in popular stories, and yeah, it's even in the Bible. The idea of a physical afterlife was just baked into the culture. All right, but this is where Gregory just throws a wrench in the whole system. He takes this universally accepted idea that the soul has to go somewhere, and he just takes it apart with pure, simple logic. Let's just walk through his reasoning, because it's actually pretty straightforward. He says, look, the physical world, it's made of stuff. It exists in space. Our bodies are physical, so of course they need to be in a place. Simple enough. But the soul, the soul is fundamentally different. He says it's non-bodily, or as the original text puts it, ulla gemblet. So if something has no body, if it has no physical properties, what's the logical conclusion? It doesn't need a physical place to exist.
And it all comes down to this one incredible line. This is the core of his entire argument. The soul, because it's non-bodily, just doesn't play by the rules of physical space. It doesn't need a container, it doesn't need an address, it doesn't need a place to be. It just is. Now, you can't just drop a philosophical bombshell like that and expect everyone to just go along with it, right? Of course not. Gregory's really elegant logic immediately ran smack into a huge obstacle, the very scriptures his audience considered sacred.
The pushback was pretty direct. People would point to passages from the Apostle Paul, for instance, which seemed to describe a very clear 3-tiered universe. You've got heaven up above, our world right here, and then a realm under the earth. So how could Gregory's idea of a placeless soul possibly work with this super clear place-based language from Scripture?
And this, right here, this is the core of the whole debate. On one side, you have Gregory's philosophical argument, which is all based on the nature of the soul itself. And on the other, you have this traditional, text-based view that absolutely demands a physical spot, a place like Hades. Gregory had to somehow make his logic fit with deeply held faith.
So how does this all come together? What's the takeaway? Well, by challenging the very idea of a place, Gregory forces us to completely reframe the whole question of the afterlife. He yanks the focus away from the external and puts it squarely on the internal.
So, at the end of the day, the question is no longer, where do you go, but what have you become?
The soul's condition after death is simply the state it was in when you died. It's that garden you either took care of or let run wild. The afterlife, then, isn't a trip to some new destination, it's just the ongoing reality of your soul's character. And in this view, heaven and hell stop being places you get sent to, and they become the internal states of being that you yourself have created.
And that leaves us with a really profound final thought, doesn't it? This idea, from 1600 years ago, pushes the question right back onto us, right here, right now. If the afterlife isn't about geography, if your soul doesn't actually need a physical place to exist, what then does it truly need? What are you cultivating today?